Today, we are designing the last member of Monster High Gen B's main 5-ghoul cast, the Chupacabra, a legendary creature in Latin American folklore, particularly in Mexico and Puerto Rico. It's often described as a small, hairless creature with spikes on its back and large red eyes with fangs. Chupacabras are known for attacking and sucking the blood of livestock, especially goats, hence the name goat sucker. So for this character, what we need to do is design a Mexican Chupacabra. This character will have a more Gen 3-ish Monster High vibe. I realize I am not that good at doing Gen 1 Monster High vibes, and I really can't copy existing series aesthetics that well, but hey, not even Monster High can Monster High. Since she is meant to be in a close friend group, we must make sure her aesthetic and color palette don't blend in with anyone else's, and of course do the same with her backstory and personality. Like in all my other designs, we start with some doodles and iterations to get to know our character first. I was so confused. I feel like with every character design I make, they just get progressively harder and harder for this series. The struggle here is that today's Chupacabra is from Oaxaca specifically. When I'm designing characters from countries I don't know, sometimes narrowing down your origin to a specific region can really help. And her aesthetic is very much influenced by their traditional fashion, specifically the sort worn during the celebration of Guelaguetza's folk dances. But I also wanted to go and make her not so stereotypical, so I also wanted to give her Lolita fashion too. Now, the problem with designing OCs from unfamiliar cultures is that I don't know how to take artistic liberties with their cultural fashion in a way that doesn't look like a bad Halloween costume. It might look okay to me, but I don't know how it looks to people from that culture. I know I tend to get a bit irritated when I see people doing things with my beloved Jongsams, so I don't want to do that to anybody else. Plus, it's difficult to balance how traditional you go, because on one hand, you don't want to go full traditional in this context. She is a modern-day 15 to 16-year-old after all, and since she's a literal goat sucker, I don't think she'd be participating in folk dances with humans anytime soon. It just doesn't make sense for her to go to school every day in extremely accurate traditional celebratory dress, does it? But at the same time, I want to have that cultural influence people can actually notice. It is a Monster High thing, whether we like it or not. That's up to you. I also just love traditional clothing, and I need to prove to people I'm good at that. The iterations, I would say, they're there for sure, and a starting point for sure. Are they good? No. Are they helpful? Yes. And that's the true meaning of iterations. Sometimes our first design or first 8 designs suck, and that's okay. The main point is that we take these and improve on them for the final design. The first 2 iterations are literally just practice. One is literally just an Oaxacan traditional dress, and the other is a very generic Lolita dress. The main gripe I have with these iterations is that they just don't fuse the gothic Lolita and Oaxacan elements that well. Something is off. The Oaxacan influence just is not strong enough to notice, and the designs aren't really properly Lolita as well, I feel like, although they do have those poofy skirts and large prints. I will say that her color palette seems pretty good because they do stand out from her friends a lot, and this cast is already very colorful, so you know what, props to me for that. I randomly added in some fluff to her iterations because I wanted to make her design stand out even more. It brings wolf in sheep clothing vibes, and that would be great for a Lolita werewolf, but just not a Chupacabra. After all, they are called goat suckers. So I added in a goat skull print with marigolds on her skirt instead, which I quite liked. Ultimately, was I happy with my iterations? No. Was I really disappointed because I spent a lot of time on them? Yes. But you know what? It's fine. Things happen. And you know what? If you're struggling with character design too, because I know that you're probably an artist as well, we will get through this together, fam. We can do this. My friend Pluton kindly did some mashups for me of all these designs, and I found them really nice. But I had to go and not really adhere to her tweaks as well. I had to go and fix things in the final design, And it was in this process where I was trying to figure out how to fix things that I looked at the Wikipedia article for the Chupacabra again. And I realized that I made a bit of a silly mistake. For you see, there are actually 2 kinds of Chupacabras and I had chosen the wrong one. If she's from Mexico, she's not actually this sort of Chupacabra, the one that looks like a coyote with mange. She should be this sort of Chupacabra. I messed up. The story behind this difference in Chupacabras is that basically Puerto Rico and Mexico and the United States have different versions. So this guy called Benjamin Radford investigated Chupacabras for 5 years apparently. And the original eyewitness from Puerto Rico described the creature as looking very, very identical, nearly basically the same, as a 1995 science fiction horror film monster called The Sill. It has the spines and all of that. And so I chose the wrong sort of Chupacabra, silly Billy moment. We all make mistakes, that was a bit embarrassing, but alright, we will fix this. So while I go and fix things, let's go and talk about Chupacabra's personality and backstory. Her name is currently Valeria Alejandra Marie Guadalupe because me and the homies don't speak Spanish and we don't know how to make a Chupacabra pun, but we did do some brainstorming for her. I'm quite happy with the ideas my friends came up with. I let them take the lead for her writing this time, and I think they did a really good job. It's very important for a cast to have varied personalities, and she is the weird girl, which has basically no overlap with everyone else, which I'm very happy with. She really likes Lolita fashion, she's very odd, and I feel like she's, the sort that just does things her own way. She probably makes her clothes herself too, who knows. I asked my friends to go and help me write her backstory because I was really trying to balance the art and editing time with the writing time, and I really needed help. And my friend Blub came in clutch. Blub wrote this backstory for her because he wanted to give her Tourette's. So I'm gonna read it out now, verbatim. So, if our monster girl does have Tourette's, then that means a couple of things. First off, she would experience tics. Now, tics can be a wide array of things, including blinking, eye rolling, shoulder shrugging, repeating words, and so on. Now, while some people with Tourette's can suppress their tics for a short while, this is not the case for many, and even those people who can control them to an extent will need to let them happen eventually. People can't really predict when your tics are gonna happen. Sure, you can guess, such as in times of focus, it's found that tics can lessen, or in times of stress, they can be more severe. But this is all different in each individual. To summarize, Tourette's is complicated. Now for the character herself, I imagine her backstory is rather interesting. At first, she was going to an all-Chupacabra school, which made her situation even worse. After all, when everyone is the same in some way, you can easily see the people that are different. Now add in her Tourette's and you have the perfect environment for bullying and shunning, and that's exactly what happens. She gets bullied regularly, and she pulls it more into herself and becomes more reclusive. During this time, she becomes more and more angry at her peers and parents. Her peers for bullying her or not helping, and her parents for passing Tourette's down to her. Cause you see, her mom also has Tourette's as well. One day, things come to a head when the bullying goes too far, and she finally stands up for herself and fights back. But this ends up with her being kicked out of school. Her parents decided it is time for a new start, and they move, enrolling their daughter into Monster High. There, things are better. But she still holds onto her old baggage. I mean, you can't just drop that stuff so easily. She has a lot of work to do to heal, but I think she can do it. What do you guys think of this backstory? Also, did you know that Blub has a YouTube channel called Drowning Devil? Link down in the description, you should definitely check him out. This backstory would definitely be an interesting storyline for sure because it would actually make her relationship with a lot of the other characters I've designed far more complicated than just good friends. For series like Monster High, everyone in the main cast just tends to get along really well, but this backstory would actually add a lot of layers to all these friendships. She'd have this very close bond with Teresa the Manananggal, for example, because they're both blood-sucking monsters with a craving for viscera, but she would also envy Teresa because Teresa is a social butterfly and the glue of the group. Valeria would also have a really hard time connecting with Chuchu and Ambra, more quiet characters. They really like each other, I guess, but like, how do you really connect on a deeper level when you're both kind of just bad at social interaction? Like, imagine two people who are really bad at social interaction just trying to be closer as friends. That'd be very interesting to write. And most of all, Valeria would have a really hard time forgiving Bingo, who's a reformed bully. There is so much relationship potential, which is great for a Monster High series, and it's also a really good shift from a more overly romantic focus and also more commonly used platonic relationship dynamics. If you don't know anything about the other characters I've mentioned here, you can always watch their videos I've made previously, which goes more into depth into their separate backstories and personalities. Now, the proper way to draw Oakan braids like this is actually tucked behind their ears if you're following their references right. But I gave her no ears to tuck her hair behind because I thought it would be funny, but then I drew her ear holes on her full body and I regret my decision so badly. They're so uncomfortable to look at. But it's really funny too, so I'm gonna keep them. I was really pleased with my final Chupacabra design actually. For you see, fusing Lolita and Oakan fashion was actually easier than I thought it would be after a while. It turns out that I just needed to take a closer look at the references instead of being a silly Billy all the time. The good thing about the Oakan fashion is that they have very distinctive ribbon braids, which I found very helpful in making sure that Oakan influence was very clear. It was also the entire reason why I chose Owaka specifically. I just really love ribbon braids. They look so lovely, don't you think? They do wear them during festivals like Guelaguetza, but they also wear them in day-to-day life sometimes, the certain ethnic groups, because it helps them keep their braids clean and tidy for when you're doing chores apparently. So that's what I learned from research. I really like the skirts specifically because both Oakan and Lolita skirts have a gathered waistline and lace, which made things a lot easier. And to pull in that Oakan influence, I also added some ribbons to the skirt as well. And it was a bit hard to render the ribbons, but I find it so satisfying to draw fabric nowadays. I know it's not exactly the most realistic physics in the world, but it's so fun. And the prints were also quite nice to do. So was the lace. For the shoes, I kind of feel like I messed up on that one. I feel like I could salvage them eventually, but I do feel like, you know what, for a design as complicated and busy as this, we can let them take a backseat to the rest of the Chupacabra's glory. Her blouses are quite nice. They're not exactly Oakan at all. They're not exactly Lolita either. They have a collar that you don't see that much in Lolita fashion. And they leave more room on her collarbone for her necklaces, which are also inspired by Oakan fashion, but they're not exactly accurate. We had to go and put in the goat skull motif in both designs, so her necklace has a goat skull motif, and I think that her necklaces actually look quite charming on her. I really like both her blouses. The lace look quite nice, the ribbons look quite nice, and I really like the red blouse's rib details. It's quite cute. I think overall she's a pretty good design. I mean, we went so terribly at first, but I salvaged it in the end, and I'm so happy. And I finally designed. The last member of the Monster High Gen B main cast is finished. From Teresa to the rest to now here, I just wanted to say that if you've been here for a while, just thanks for being here on this journey with me. I am so happy that this is finally finished. But you know what? To the one person that keeps asking me to make an Elsie Bond character, do not worry, my Venezuelan friend, because I'm actually only finished with the main cast, not the villains. And oh boy, don't we all love villains. Can you try guessing their monster types in the comments? Subscribe so you can catch them. Also, if you guys have any name suggestions for her, you can always toss them out to us. Cheers!